I, 18F, overheard conversations with my mom and my dad, 39F and 40M, about how they planned to kick me out shortly after my 18th birthday. The way they were talking about it seemed like they were dead serious, and the way it was brought up multiple times made it seem like they were going to kick me out too. So, I decided that I wouldn't give them the chance to kick me out and made plans with my friend Riley, 17F, to stay at her place until I graduated and moved into a college dorm or had an apartment of my own. Riley's parents were horrified by the thought my parents would kick me out the second I turned 18 and agreed to let me stay at their place as long as I graduated high school. Riley, her parents, and my boyfriend Cole, 18M, came after midnight to help me take my belongings to their car and drive me to Riley's house. My parents woke up in the middle of this and asked me what the hell was going. I kinda shrugged and told them that I was moving out before they could kick me out. My parents tried to deny this and attempted to stop me from leaving, but there was nothing that they could do since I'm a legal adult. By the way, I wasn't just going to leave in the middle of the night without any goodbye. I already put a note on the kitchen table where my mom goes to first in the morning, explaining what happened. Right now, I'm at Riley's house in their spare bedroom, and I've gotten bombarded with calls from my parents asking me to come back and not to tell my grandparents about this. In one text, my mom called me an ungrateful bitch for leaving in the middle of the night, and that she should have kicked me out sooner. Update. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting to see my story on r/ when I woke up this morning, but here we are. I honestly forget about this account, and struggled to remember the password, but here we go. A lot of shocking information was revealed, and this is just my brief, messy account of it. So, like you all suggested I do, I told my grandparents what happened with screenshots of my parents' texts after I went to Riley's house. Let me tell you, that they were livid at what my parents were saying to me and the fact they were planning to kick me out. I ended up meeting up with them, and staying with them at their place for a few days while they tried to figure out what the fuck was going on with my parents. My mom and dad were being sent money monthly by my grandma and grandpa for my college fund since they mostly depleted it, after my brother Alex moved out because he was tired of them begging him for money due to their gambling addictions. My mom admitted that their plan was to kick me out, but act like I moved out willingly because I found an apartment, and get double the money that they were previously getting to help out with my rent money once they asked my grandparents for it. Grandma yelled at my mom over the phone and told her that she'd never see a dime of her money again. She told my mom that she would rewrite her will so that the money my mom would have gotten would go to me, which my mom freaked out at. My dad blew up my phone one more time before I blocked both him and my mom's numbers for good, calling me an evil cunt and telling me that he wished my mom aborted me. So yeah. I talked with my brother, Alex, and the only thing he really had to say, or ask, I guess was why our parents' scummy behavior hadn't been called out when they were trying to legitimately steal his paychecks to go gamble. I'm sorry if this is kinda rambly, but this was the best I could do at the moment. Thank you all for your advice, and I'll maybe give another update if anything else happens, but I doubt it will. Story 2. Hello everyone. I am writing this to figure out what to do or who to believe in this situation. Let me start out by saying that I am white and my lovely fiancé is a black woman. We have an amazing relationship and I don't want any other woman in my life. She is also the only black woman I have ever dated. My parents have always been supportive of me and I have an incredibly strong family relationship with them and my siblings, or at least I thought. When I was growing up in the Midwest, there weren't really black people around and the topic of racism never came up really. But I never suspected that my lovely outgoing and polite parents would be racist because they even donated money to an orphanage in Africa for like 20 years now through their church. My parents met my fiancé a year ago, but did not take it too seriously because I had a lot of girlfriends in the past and they probably just thought it was another girlfriend. Well, last weekend I announced to them that my girlfriend was now my fiancé on a family Zoom meeting. My parents looked a little surprised because I did not discuss it with them before, but were ultimately congratulating me. We wanted to have a dinner with them in person to sort of let them get to know their future daughter-in-law and everything blew up. My mom forgot something for the dinner and my dad and I went to the store to get it. My fiancé texted me about 10 minutes and asking me to come back right away because she needed me and my dad and I turned around. When I got back she was sitting in my car, I still had the keys, and she was crying asking me to take her to our house. Of course I drove her home and told my parents I was sorry and my fiancé told me what my mom had said to her. Essentially my fiancé told me that my mom said she was not supportive of us because she didn't want black grandchildren. A number of other things that she was surprised my fiancé married up, even though I think my fiancé is better looking than me, but I am a bit more successful financially. Well, I confronted my mom and asked what she said, and my mom said that she said nothing even close to that, and that the only thing she said was that she was curious what country my wife was ethnically from and that my fiancé mistook it. Well, I asked my fiancé more probing questions, but she is adamant that my mom explicitly said these things. I've never known either of them to be liars, but the two people I trust most in this world are giving me completely conflicting stories. I want to side with my wife, but what if she is having some mental episode or something? Is it a possibility that no one is lying here? I need some fucking help, tired face. Edit, it could also be a mental episode with my mom, maybe, but neither have mental issues, but they can pop up in people's 20s, like my uncle, so I just said my fiancé might have had a mental episode, sorry for the confusion. Update. Thank you for those of you who reached out with good suggestions and such, I really took everyone's advice on this. However, I really didn't think it was fair the way I was characterized in the comments, because I love my fiancé and I believe her, but I also loved my mom and had no reason to doubt her either. It's really hard to doubt your parents when they have always been good to you your entire life until this incident. Anyways, I was basically completely wrong about this whole situation. I decided to call my sisters, I told them it was an emergency and we hopped on Zoom together. Well, I explained the crazy story to them and one of them just let out a laugh but tried to hold it back. Then I went quiet and we had a few seconds of awkwardness until she let out, "Are you really asking this?" Then she told me, "Of course mom is racist." And my sisters agreed with her. Then they led me on a 30-minute rant about how mom would tell them not to marry outside their race, especially black people, because these marriages won't work out and no decent man would want you after. Apparently she told them this regularly and they all married white people anyways. The thing is that I am 9 years younger than the youngest of them, so I guess I was never included in these talks. She never once mentioned to me about race and who I should or shouldn't date. I don't know why I never received these messages. Moreover, I guess I'm just blind because they also told me I was the favorite child because I was the only boy. I assumed my parents paid for everyone's first car in college, but I guess it was just me. They were really mad at me for what I put fiancé through and not realizing things. But I feel like that's unfair because how am I supposed to know they were mistreated compared to me if I was just a child when they were in college? I guess the close relationship I thought I had was just an illusion. I told my fiancé that I was with her until I die and I don't care if they all cut me off and that I am siding with her always. I should have done this from the beginning because she is really not the kind of person to call people racist and I never knew her to be super political. After talking with my sisters I hung up almost crying, which I normally don't do. But I went and told my fiancé everything I had learned and we just held each other for a while. She is not really mad at me, but just sad about the whole situation and we talked a lot about whether to cut my parents out completely or not. I know for sure we will not let them around our future children. Also, my sisters called me back and told me they are sorry they were so harsh to me, but I really hope I don't lose all my family from this. I also found out my dad has those internal Ring cameras, and I asked to see the videos from that day but he told me they were already deleted or overwritten, but I would really like to see it in person for closure. Overall, I'm sorry for the storm this caused on here, but I decided to update just because I keep seeing alerts and messages from people. Maybe somebody will find this helpful. Story 3. Gazumping occurs when an agent or seller accepts an offer you make to buy a property at an agreed price but the property is sold to someone else. This usually happens when the vendor sells the property for a higher amount. This happened 15 years ago and it is one of the proudest moments of my life. My best friend and her husband have 5 kids together. They lived in an expensive city and rented an old 4-bedroom house for $400 per week. The house was very run down with a disgusting kitchen and stink drains, but it was all they could afford at the time. Still, they made it work. The owner was a nice old lady who was extremely wealthy and very fond of my friend. She froze the rent for 5 years and promised to let them buy the house once they had saved enough to get a loan from the bank. As she had helped other people in a similar way, they knew they could trust her and so they saved every cent they could. It took them 5 years but they finally told her they were ready. 2 days later, the nice old lady passed away, before anything was put in writing. Pensive face. Enter the new owners. The lady's 4 children. Each extremely wealthy in their own right, they inherited a huge portfolio of properties. When they first spoke to my friends, they assured them that the sale would still go through but they would have to wait until probate had settled. Confident, my friends started making some changes to the place. They started by stripping wallpaper, painting, and making plans. Finally, probate was settled and the owners agreed to go ahead with the sale for the previously agreed price. My friends applied for the loan, but to their shock, it was refused. The owners had raised the asking price by $80,000 without telling my friends. To make things even worse, the house would be put on the open market. In 7 days there would be an open house and, with the market the way it was, it would probably sell immediately. My friends were devastated. They might be able to borrow enough, but it would take longer than a week to get. To make matters worse, property prices had soared recently and rents had gone up a lot whilst theirs had been frozen. Not only were my friends going to struggle to get the money. If the place was sold to someone else and they were asked for a higher rent or were evicted, it would be nearly impossible to find an affordable place with more than 2 bedrooms. I was scared for my friends, but I was also incandescently angry. Those greedy sods were some of the wealthiest people in the city. They were screwing over a struggling family for less than $20,000 each. They didn't need the money. It is pure greed, and it was obvious that they'd always planned to do this. So while my friends scrambled to come up with the money, I started plotting. I looked up advice on what helps to make a sale. We needed to make the place as undesirable as possible without making my friends look like bad tenants. Uncluttered, we moved all the furniture in from the walls, added some extra furniture and borrowed ornaments, and hung a load of motorcycle memorabilia on the walls. The place felt more smaller. Smell, my friend boiled a head of cabbage on the stove and we sprayed ammonia around the front and back doors, because it smells like all the neighborhood cats had been marking their territory. We also poured 24 rotten eggs down the drain to make it smell like sewer gas. Nauseated face. Neighborhood, we obtained a moldy old couch and dumped in front yard of the neighbor across the road, with permission of course. Neighborhood X2, we started calling friends for help. Anybody with a loud and crappy car was asked to do a few laps in front of the block during the open day. The street was unusually busy that day. Everyone we knew found a reason to drive by. It was practically rush hour. Neighborhood X3, we called out mates from the rugby club, full contact football without any of that soft padding. A big portion of our club are very large men. The next door neighbor set up a barbecue in their front yard and we offered free food and cheap beer. They came on motorcycles, wearing their roughest gear. There was quite a crowd. A lot of people showed up for the open day. Quite a few were in and out within minutes. One lady sat in her car and watched the party next door before driving away. The one bloke who stayed any length time was brave enough to start up a conversation with someone leaving the party. He asked if they were often there and was told every couple of weeks or so. They have an after-party morning and the party the night before was 3 doors up. The party-goer also helpfully mentioned the troublesome drains that are always getting blocked by tree roots and stinking up the place. The potential buyer left without making an offer. So my friends were the only ones to make an offer. They still had to pay more than they'd planned, but not as much as the greed bastards wanted. My friend signed the papers and paid the deposit that day. So when the brave buyer put in an offer of $30,000 more than my friends, there was nothing the owners could do about it, strict anti-gazumping laws. I would have loved to see the owners' faces when they found out. Smiling face with horns. For all the people who were saying they had cheap rent. They didn't. $400 was the rent in 2004 and that was pretty high back then. By the time the lady died, average rent for a house that size had only gone up by about $40. Nowadays, 4-bedroom houses in that area go for approximately $800 per week.